in terms of my own experience with getting serious about creating the skill of confidence, is it's a game changer. The more that you build confidence in your life, the greater the risks you're going to take. And that's critical in business, in life, for fulfillment. I also have the ability to say no and not even be bothered by what other people are going to feel. Why? Because I have the skill of confidence. It also makes you an incredible negotiator because you realize you would rather be respected than be liked. And see, this kind of need to be liked or to look good is part of the reason why you doubt yourself all the time. I want you to bring that power back internally. That's what the skill of confidence does. And you'll also be able to recognize when you're afraid of something and that fear is just kind of bullshit in your head. And you have a choice. You don't have to let fear stop you anymore. And that's where the skill of confidence comes in. And the same is going to be true for you. So I think it kind of begs the question. If confidence is something that we all want, why is it so hard to master? I'll tell you why. Because when it comes to the research around confidence, it is some of the most dry, boring, no offense to the confidence researchers and writers out there, but I'm talking if you have trouble sleeping, just print out a study about confidence. That'll put you into deep REM sleep. It's also confusing. And even Google isn't much of a help on this topic. If you search how to be confident, you know what the top results, one of them says? Be true to you. What the hell does that even mean? Be true to you. And honestly, be true to you, that is not what the research says. The problem and why it's hard for people to develop the skill of confidence is the research has not been boiled down into tactical information that you can apply to your day-to-day life. And that's where your friend Mel Robbins comes in. So here's your first assignment on today's podcast, because you know we're not just listening here. This is a doing podcast, and we're going to make this tactical and relevant immediately. Assignment number 1, be selfish as you listen. I want you to listen a particular way. I want you to listen and think, what's in it for me? And so let me ask you a question to help you get really selfish. If you had more confidence, like I could go and boom, you have more confidence than you've ever had in your entire life, how would your life be different? How would your future be different? Now, Heather has already shared that she has this awesome promotion, which she clearly earned. I mean, businesses don't just give those out as charity. If a business has promoted or hired you, they believe in your ability to execute. But now she's freaking out. She doesn't have the confidence. Now, when you think about confidence, how would more confidence help Heather's life be different? Well, confidence would allow Heather to step into that role, right? And she would be able to lose the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome and the panicking. And she'd be able to act like the leader that the organization promoted her to be, right? Without all the nervousness and crap going on in her head. What about you? Let's get selfish. What would more confidence allow you to do that you're not currently doing? Would you be able to say no? Would you be better with boundaries? Are there more risks you would take? Is there a conversation you've been avoiding with yourself or someone else? Would you be able to stand up for yourself, advocate more for yourself, ask for what you need? What about work? Would you be more visible? Would you speak up more? All of that you just envisioned, it's all within your reach. And so let's talk about something that Heather said. Heather said in her question that she doesn't, quote, feel confident in the new role. I don't feel confident. And so I want to start by giving you a definition of confidence that will change your ability to build it as a skill. This definition of confidence I have been sharing for years, and I think I created it based on the research because I haven't really seen it out there before. And this definition is going to surprise you because it's a definition of confidence that puts the research into action. See, here's the mistake that everybody makes. Heather made the mistake because she said that I don't, quote, feel confident. And I bet you're making this mistake with confidence too. In my book, based on the research, that's where we get it wrong. Confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is embodied in action. My definition of confidence is the willingness to try. I'm going to say it again. Your new definition of confidence, embodied by the research, confidence is the willingness to try. Confidence is an action. That's what it is. And this phenomenon has been heavily researched by social psychologists, and there's even a term for confidence being an action. See, there's this positive feedback loop that happens when you're willing to try something before you feel ready, when you're willing to step into that leadership role and put yourself out there and take risks and make mistakes and shove that self-doubt to the side. When you're willing to try, neuroscience research says that you create something called a confidence-competence loop. And let me explain this to you because there's a lot of common sense here, right? Every single time you try something new, you're either going to be really good at it or you're going to be terrible at it, right? But you always learn something. But you have to try. So Heather is going to step into this new role. She's trying out a new role. She's either going to be really good at it or she's going to be miserable at it. Boundaries, you might be really good at it when you start trying to set them. You might be really miserable at it. But here's the thing. If you try something for the first time, you're either going to fail or succeed, but you always learn something. And that's where this confidence-competence loop and the neuroscience research comes in. Because even when you try, when you learn a little something, you gain a little competency, right? Because of everything that you learned the first time around, it gets a little bit easier. It gets a little bit better, but it all begins with being willing to try, no matter where you're starting from. Because if you are the kind of person that's always willing to try, you will always grow and you will always learn. And the more that you try and the more that you learn, the less you doubt yourself, the less resistance that you have, and bada bing, bada boom, all of a sudden you feel confident in this new role. All of a sudden you feel confident doing a backflip off a boat because you tried 1,000 times and you belly flopped and you embarrassed yourself and you got a wedgie. And then what do you know? Because you were willing to keep trying, all of that competency that got gained of trying over and over and over and over again, it's how you gained mastery. See, feeling confident is kind of, it's almost like the wrong way to say it, because that's what you feel after you've done it over and over and over again. But true confidence begins the moment you're willing to try. Okay? And so I really think it's important. I can give you another example. The first time somebody handed me chopsticks, I had no idea how to use them. Was I nervous about picking them up and I couldn't get like my fingers to twist in the way that you're supposed to, and it was super embarrassed and they kept like flipping across the table and everybody. Here's the thing. I didn't know how to use them, but isn't it common sense that there's no way I was going to learn how to use them if I wasn't willing to try? See, being confident and the skill of confidence is the difference between saying, sure, hand me the chopsticks. I'd love to try. I'm willing to look like an idiot. I'm willing to be a beginner first, versus going, can you get me a fork? I don't know how to use those. Do you see the difference? The skill begins with being willing to try. So many of you saw me on the Today Show today. That is the culmination of 10 years of being willing to try, being willing to walk on a stage and have a panic attack or a neck rash, being willing to get behind a microphone and make terrible content or say stupid things or look terrible in videos. You know, you got to remember what you're seeing is a person on the Today Show who has been working hard for 10 years, trying over and over and over and over and learning and failing. That's what you're witnessing. You're witnessing competency, but the skill is something different. The skill of confidence is trying. And, you know, let me remind you of a fact. Everybody starts at zero. Everyone. Whether you're trying to learn guitar or you're building a social media following or you want to get into the YouTube space or you're writing a book or you're selling, everybody starts at zero. That's how I started. 0 speeches given, zero television experience, zero social media following, zero email addresses, zero competency in front of a camera or on a microphone. I mean, even take this podcast. Starting this, I started at zero. The tech is intimidating. There are 5 million podcasts on Spotify alone. I'm 54 years old. I don't know how to do that. I haven't done this before. I haven't been in the seat of the person that hosts. But here's the difference with your friend Mel Robbins. I'm willing to try. I lean on this skill of confidence that I've built because I have the definition that's grounded in research. And so do you. You're not going to feel confident. You're going to act in accordance with the research of confidence. You, my friend, are willing to try. That's the secret. You know, I'm going to tell you a story. A lot of you have seen my TEDx talk. So I have one of the most popular and most viewed TEDx talks in the world. I think it's got almost 30 million views at this point. It's a TED talk called How to Stop Screwing Yourself Over. And if you watch my 21-minute long TED talk, you know what you're witnessing? You are witnessing a 21-minute long panic attack. That was the first official speech I had ever given in my entire life. I was terrified of public speaking. And most people are terrified of public speaking. When I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, college, law school, whenever I got called on in class, bright red. My mind would immediately go blank. The only job I got out of law school was working for legal aid as a public defender in New York City. And when I had to stand in court all day, I was not talking to an audience. I'm talking to a judge and a bailiff and police officers and the prosecutor. It's not like some big stadium. You're in a small courtroom where you see the same people day in and day out. That's not a speech. That's like talking in a meeting at work. But nevertheless, I was so afraid of speaking out loud as a new attorney. I would get these monster neck rashes all over my neck and chest. You know, the kind of rashes that people get when they're nervous or they've had too much to drink or they get an allergic reaction to food. That was Mel Robbins, the early years. You know how I dealt with that neck rash and that fear? I would wrap a scarf around my neck or I'd wear a turtleneck as an attempt to try to hide it. In fact, even when I became an on-air commentator for CNN, I was part of their legal team in terms of providing commentary for CNN. I did that for 3 or 4 years. Incredible experience. Never done that before. Why was I willing to do that, knowing that half the time my cheeks would turn bright red, half the time I'd be worried that I might say something stupid? I'll tell you why. Because I understand the skill of confidence. You build it by being willing to try. You have to start at zero, and nobody wants to start at zero. You want to step into this new role and think that you have it all figured out. Well, guess what? You don't, because you've never done this before. But if you're willing to try, if you're willing to make mistakes, if you're willing to understand that by showing up every day and trying and learning and failing and falling on your face and dusting yourself off and like putting in the work, eventually the competency catches up. And what neuroscience says is what you're actually experiencing when you can use chopsticks because you've been trying, or when you can stand on a stage and you don't have a neck rash that looks like you just got stung by a bee and you're about to go into anaphylactic shock. When you can do that, you want to know why you can do that? It's because the number of times that you've tried have lowered the resistance in your own brain and body to doing it. And so it feels easier. It feels effortless. It's not that you're, quote, more confident. It's that you've built up the competency so that you know how to do it without even thinking about it. And so that's why your friend Mel is so successful, because I'm willing to, A, start at zero, and I'm willing to keep showing up over and over and over and trying, despite my doubt, despite my fire engine red cheeks, despite my flushed neck. I've not only gained the competency and settled those nerves, but over time by doing exactly what I'm about to teach you to do. I went from somebody who was terrified of public speaking to becoming one of the most talented, respected, and requested and booked public speakers in the entire world. That's what's available to you today. And so the other thing I want to talk about really quickly is I know that what you think you're up against, Heather, and if you're struggling with confidence, is that, oh, imposter syndrome. I got imposter syndrome. Well, no shit, you have imposter syndrome because you haven't done this before. See, I see imposter syndrome as a really good thing because when you feel like an imposter in a role, that's just a fancy way of saying you're trying something new. And so starting today, if you're in the game of building confidence, everybody, you got to open your arms. You got to reach out for that imposter syndrome. Because if you don't have imposter syndrome, you're not doing anything uncomfortable. And if there's one thing I've learned in life after 54 years is that it's only by making yourself face things that are uncomfortable that you're going to grow into the best version of yourself. If you always do the things that you're comfortable doing, you will never, ever, ever experience what might be possible because you're not pushing yourself. And so I don't want you to fear imposter syndrome. I want you to see it as a good thing. Oh, I feel like an imposter. Great. I'm trying something new. This is confidence building. Here we go. And speaking of the myth that imposter syndrome is a bad thing, no. You're learning when it comes to building confidence, you got to embrace that imposter syndrome period because it means you're trying and you're learning and you're gaining competency. And we love that around here. We are talking about confidence. And I'm really excited because I'm going to walk you through the 5 simple tools that help you build this as a skill. And tool number 1, take action. This is obvious. I understand. We have the definition of confidence. Confidence is the willingness to try. You're not going to change your life or build confidence by thinking about the things you need to do. You must take action. And so the best action to take, the number 1 tool for helping you take action in those moments where you feel imposter syndrome or you feel nervous or you're embarrassed or you start to doubt yourself or you feel anxious, whatever the feeling is, forget the feeling. Screw the feeling. We got to take action in those moments because remember, we're building confidence. It's going to require you to try. Just use my 5-second rule. I told you the whole story about how I created it, the science behind it in the episode we released way back in the day called Motivation is Garbage. I'll link to that. But if you're brand new to the podcast, let me give you the shortcut. When you're in a situation where you start to doubt yourself, you're just going to count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you physically move within 5 seconds. So here's how you can use it. Heather's talking about the fact that she wants to build confidence in this new role where she's been promoted. There are things that she needs to do as a new leader, but she doesn't have the competency yet. Instead of thinking about those things, she can use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, to interrupt that self-doubt, which is right there in the interior part of your brain and your basal ganglia. It's a pattern to doubt yourself. And as you start counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, your mind switches gears and your prefrontal cortex gets involved. And that's the part of the brain that controls your focus. It helps you interrupt thoughts and feelings of self-doubt. And it draws the part of your brain that will help you take action, will help you engage in strategic thinking, will help you encode new behavior and habits. It will help you tap into your courage. That's it. That's all that it is for Alex, who is surrounded by all these high achievers. The next time she's sitting in a classroom and she has something that she wants to share, instead of shrinking in her seat, she's going to try. And the 5-second rule is going to help. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then she's going to shoot that hand up in the air because you know what? Alex has something to say. And even though she doesn't feel comfortable, even though she might get a neck rash, even though her cheeks might go fire engine red, and even though she might stutter or stumble or have dry mouth or whatever might happen, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, she is willing to try. Because here's something I want you to understand. You can tap into courage before you start having that feeling of assuredness. Courage is what you tap into. Confidence is what you're building over time. I'm going to say that again. Courage comes first. Courage, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You start counting backwards, man, that is an act of courage because you're going for it. Courage comes first. Confidence is what builds over time. How cool is that, right? I absolutely love this because what I'm ultimately teaching you, and this again relates to all the research, is that there's two types of people out there. There are people who think about what they want to do, and then there are people that find the courage to take action. And that's what I want for you, because you're not going to think your way out of fear or doubt or insecurity. You're not going to think your way through your fears and anxiety. The fact is, you have greatness inside you, and I want you to start tapping into it. It's only through action that you unlock that power inside you and you become the person that you're meant to be. I mean, that's how I've created the life that I have now. If I didn't learn how to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push myself to try, I'd still be sleeping in a bed, staring at the ceiling, consumed with anxiety, feeling like I had ruined my life. That's how you change your life. You have to take action over and over and over again. And so I think you get this. You get that you're not going to change or build confidence by thinking about doing this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop thinking and start taking some risks. Start trying. Put a bet on yourself. Let's frickin' go. Now let's do rule number 2. Rule number 2 is if you personally just tremble in your boots when you think about doing the things that you'd love to do. Let's get back to you. Let's get selfish. What is it that more confidence would have you be doing differently? When you think about those things, speaking up at work, launching your business, tackling your health issues, putting your online dating profile up and getting yourself back out there because you're ready and you've healed and the heartbreak is over and you're ready to have some fun again. When you start thinking about how confidence would change your life, I guarantee you're still going to feel a little nervous. So here's a second tool that's going to help you try. You can use the power of objectivity, okay? Let's make it less personal. Be the person you want to become or create an alter ego. This can be fun, you know. We don't have to like white knuckle this confidence thing. Let's have some fun with it because there's a study out of Johns Hopkins that I love. And it's about letting go of self-doubt. And the study suggests that when you use an alter ego or you create a vision of the future you, the person you want to become, it gives you distance from the scaredy cat you who's never done this thing before. So ask yourself, you know what I always ask myself? I go, well, what would The Rock do in this situation? I just love Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I constantly use him as my avatar when it comes to confidence. What would The Rock do in this moment? And I always get an answer, and it feels less personal. Because you and I are friends, you can use The Rock, you can use me. What would Mel do if you're feeling unsure and you want to tap into the confidence that you kind of pick up on from me? And this also taps into an entire body of research that I talk about a lot on the Mel Robbins podcast, which is behavioral activation therapy. Decades of research show that when you start acting like the person you want to become in the future now, in your present life, it's one of the fastest ways for you to change your mindset, for you to create new habits. Why? Because when you start acting like the person you want to become in the future, you start acting like that person today, what are you doing? You're trying. You're trying to act like the future you would act. So let's go back to our first question. Heather, when she acts like the Heather 2 years from now, who's now gotten another promotion because she just slayed it in this role, the Heather today is trying to be the Heather she wants to become. Isn't that cool? Alex sitting in the classroom, surrounded by all these high achievers. When she acts like the Alex she wants to be 2 years from now, who's earned her doctorate, who is one of those high achievers, who is a bit more vocal, who is able to express her ideas. When she acts like that version of herself now, what is she doing? She's trying. How cool is this? It all just ladders right back to the research. That's why you can trust what I'm telling you. Another tool that you can use to build the skill of confidence is prepare. Because the more that you practice something, the more you're trying and the more competent you're going to be. So if you are nervous and you can't shake the nerves, double down on preparing. That's right. Do rehearsals, run through it. Why? Because every time you rehearse something, you're trying it, and it gives your mind and your nervous system the ability to lower the stress because your mind and your nervous system have prepared so you know what's coming. See, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice prepares you. And what's one other thing about practice? What's the first thing that you learned about confidence? Again, I come back to the definition. It's the willingness to try. That's how you put the definition into life, by practicing, preparing for something, practicing something over and over and over. Whether you're, like the Williams sisters, who literally stood there and hit balls 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 before they were even allowed to enter a tournament. What were they doing? They're building the skill of confidence. You want to be confident? Prove it by preparing. I use this all the time. A lot of people, I laugh, like, you see me get in front of a YouTube camera, or you see me walk onto a stage, or you listen to one of my audiobooks, and you're like, how do you do that? I've prepared, because when you're ready, just think back in your own life. Think about those moments in high school or college where you weren't prepared for the test. How nervous were you? You were shaking in your boots. You couldn't even concentrate. You knew walking into the test that you were screwed. Now think about a moment when you actually studied, which is just you practicing. You feel calmer, more assured. Why? Because you were willing to try by sitting in the stacks in the library instead of going out and cracking open the books. And that's what I'm talking about. This is something you build. Let me tell you about tool number 4. I love this. This is a mindset reframe. Because you got the 5-second rule, you've got the power of objectivity. What would Mel or The Rock do? You've got preparation. And now let me give you a mindset trick. I love this. I tell myself all the time why it's worth trying. The reason why I tell myself why it's worth trying. Why is it worth trying something if I'm only going to fail? Why is it worth going for it if I can't make my dreams come true? I'll tell you why. Because everything that you do in life is preparing you for something that hasn't happened yet. What did I tell you about confidence? Confidence is not something you build when you're winning. I think oftentimes when we're winning, what gets built is arrogance and bravado. And we forget what went into winning at something in the first place. True confidence, the skill of confidence, it's forged in fire. I've failed more times than I have time to tell you. You guys know that a decade ago, talk about failure, 800 grand in debt, unemployed, drinking my way through my problems, and all of that heartbreak and headache and breakdown in my life, which was horrendous to go through, it led me to the 5-second rule. If there was no debt, there was no drinking, there was no heartache, there would be no 5-second rule. When I was a talk show host, I was taping a talk show at CBS Broadcast Center here in New York City. It was a dream of mine to be able to have a daytime talk show. It gets canceled. It was leading me somewhere. Where? To this podcast, which is my most favorite thing that I have ever done in my career. See, I choose not to stay in a place of self-doubt. I choose not to wallow in failure. Because I know that life is always preparing you for something. And I know that your greatest failures, your biggest heartbreaks, they always teach you the most important lessons in life. And I keep getting questions from you guys. Mel, oh my God, you're so confident. Like, what? You're 54 years old. You keep reinventing yourself. You keep trying new things like this podcast. What is it inside you, Mel? What is it inside me that makes me take all these risks, that makes me constantly try new things, that makes me willing to fail, to do something embarrassing or even disastrous? I'll tell you what it is. I want to get as much out of this life as I possibly can. And if you look at the math, I'm halfway through it. And it scares me to think that I could be on my deathbed and look back on my life and say, I wish I had tried that. I wish I had had the confidence to try that. I do not want to die and have regrets. And so while I'm here, while I'm breathing, while I'm able to, I am going to follow my curiosity. I am going to follow my heart. I am going to try new things. I am going to do absolutely everything that I can do to grow, to feel, to learn. And that's going to require me to take risks. That's going to require me to fuck up things. That's going to require me to look stupid. And I'm willing to do that because I know on the other side of the biggest heartbreaks of your life are the most amazing, heart-filled moments. I know that in the middle of every failure that I experience, and boy, I experience them oftentimes of my own doing, every single failure has, honest to God, equipped me with the lessons and the skill or the wisdom that I needed to be able to do something even cooler down the line. And I can prove it to you. Just look back on one of the scariest moments of your life, one of the biggest things that you just blew. I bet you can tell me that horrible thing that happened, that really hard thing that in the moment you were like, why is this happening to me? That right now, no matter what your life looks like, you can sit here and you know exactly what you learned from it. You know that you would not be the person you are today had it not been for that thing that you experienced, that you survived, that you learned from. And so what drives me is just wanting to experience as much as I can from this one life that I have. And it's not all going to be a joyride. And so I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to try. I'm willing to look stupid. And I'm willing to do it because I think the payoff that you get, it's worth it. It's so worth it. So this moment, it's preparing me for something that hasn't happened yet. And that reframe, what it does is it helps me put failure and heartbreak and all the hard shit in life into a box that is something that stays by my side as I move forward instead of a wall or a block or an obstacle that stops me from continuing to move forward, because that's how you move forward. You continue to try. And the final tool when it comes to building the skill of confidence is you have to focus on you, because nobody's coming. Like, nobody's going to try for you. Nobody is going to be there to motivate you to try. Nobody's going to be there to give you the pep talk. I'm here twice a week. It really is my mission that these episodes and our relationship through this podcast is one where you feel empowered and encouraged and you're reminded of who you are, that this is like a little reset, a pep talk, that you get the tools and the encouragement and the high five that you need. But ultimately, it's up to you. And you got to learn how to stop looking at the world around you and what everybody and their mother is doing. And you got to look right back in the mirror, because you are the one person that you're going to spend your whole life with. And it's time that you start to focus on that person and getting into a better relationship with that person called you. Confidence is your birthright. It is a skill that you build. It is a habit that you keep. Shit is going to get hard at times. It does for all of us. And you are going to fall. You are going to fail. You are going to have dark moments. You are going to feel lost. And what I want you to know is if you are willing to get up every single day and dust yourself off and learn the lesson and tell yourself that every day you're getting a little bit better and you are the kind of person that knows that eventually this is leading you where you're meant to go, and you're just going to get up and you're going to try again and you're going to do that thing, you, my friend, are not only going to be practicing and building confidence, you are going to feel it too. Alrighty. And I want to just remind you that we're talking about reciprocal energy exchange. That's why these situations of the pants that don't fit and the friend that's engaging in toxic behavior or the job that sucks your soul dry, there is nothing that you're getting in return. Nothing. In fact, what you're getting in return is more negativity. Those jeans in your closet make you feel bad about yourself. It's bringing you negative energy. That job that you're complaining about, that you go to day to day, convincing yourself you can't leave, you can't find some la da 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 da, it's bringing negative energy into your life. And so these situations are super easy to spot because there's no reciprocal value to the relationship or the pants or the project, period. Now what I want to talk about is the more complicated situations. Those situations where it's not clear, where you feel guilty, where maybe you're taking care of an aging parent or a child that's struggling with mental health stuff and it is depleting as hell. Or maybe you are really struggling with friendship or in relationships because you have old patterns of behavior that you don't realize are interfering with this free-flowing, reciprocal give and take that really brings amazing things into your life. So when we come back, that's what we're going to talk about. Because this notion that I'm teaching you of letting go and energy, it's not complicated at all. But life doesn't work that way. Life can get really complicated. And so when we come back, that's what we're going to dig into next. Hey, welcome back. I want to recap everything that we've covered because, here on the Mel Robbins podcast, there is no one left behind. So let's talk about what we've already covered, okay? Number one, we've talked about the fact that in order to be a happier person and create the life that you deserve, you have to learn how to let go of the things that no longer serve you. Number two, you have learned that letting go is a natural and important part of your life cycle. Whether you need to let go of friendships or a job or a place that you live or habits or the friend group that you hang out with, letting go allows you to create room for new growth, new seasons, new chapters, new adventures. And it's only through that growth and those new things that you're allowing yourself to experience that you will come into your full potential and you will unlock the magic in your life. So letting go is not a bad thing. It's a really good thing. It's a great skill. In fact, I notice in the DMs, a lot of you go, but aren't I a quitter if I quit? No, winners quit all the time. I actually think it's a losing thing to do, to hold on to things that no longer serve you. One aspect of being a winner is knowing where to put your focus and knowing when something should end. And so absolutely, winners quit all the time because when you're quitting or saying no to something right now, that's actually a yes to something else. And when you frame letting go to be not a no, not a breakup, not something negative, but letting go is letting something else open up in your life. Letting go is a beginning. Letting go is about possibility. Letting go is about the magic that's ahead. It's about the future. And so letting go is so important. And I want you to embrace it. The third thing that we talked about is that you have natural intelligence inside of you. And that may sound all woo-woo. This is science. And we're going to unpack this all the time because I'm going to keep coming back to the fact that you have instincts, you have hard wiring, your gut is trying to tell you something. And one of the fastest ways to read that natural intelligence is to pay attention to your energy. You have felt what I'm talking about. You know when things are off. You know when you feel depleted. You know when you naturally click with somebody. That is data that matters because it's data that helps you make the changes, the small changes that improve your life. The fourth thing that you've clearly learned is that the best things in life are reciprocal. Even volunteering. Volunteering is a reciprocal act. You want to know why? When you volunteer and you volunteer your time, you volunteer your energy, you donate money, you always receive something in return, don't you? You feel this sense of meaning. You feel connected to something larger and more important than your day-to-day struggles. That is a reciprocal energy exchange. You donate money, you volunteer your time and effort and resources, you get something invaluable back. That's reciprocal. That's why it adds meaning. The best friendships, reciprocal. You pour in, they pour back. Same thing with your romantic relationships. And all you need to do is to think about that one person you chased, right? That you're constantly going after. Should I text now? Are there all the energy going at them? And yeah, maybe you got an orgasm back, but then mostly you got negativity because you're constantly insecure, constantly worried, no idea where you stood, always stressed out about it, thinking about it, distracted by it. That is not a reciprocal relationship. That is an obsession that's unhealthy for you. So there are things in life that are really hard, that take a lot of energy. Things that I hate doing, things like exercise. I hate exercising. I hate getting out of bed. But once I push through that resistance, right? You learned all about this in the episode called Motivation is Garbage. Once you get the activation energy and you do the thing, what happens after you exercise? You get a reciprocal return of positive energy. You feel great about yourself. The same thing's true about my husband who doesn't drink right now. It takes a lot of effort. At least it did in the beginning. And it was really hard because he had been drinking for a long time. But even though it's hard, it's so worth it. Why? Because there is this reciprocal return. You start to feel so good about yourself. You sleep better at night. You have clarity, you have pride. You're aligned with your values. And that values word is really important because when it becomes even more nuanced, your values is how you're going to create a return of energy in really hard situations. So I can give you two examples. Any one of you who is caring for an aging parent knows how difficult that is. Any one of you that has a child or a partner who is struggling with mental health issues knows how difficult that is. You also know that you are pouring your energy into caring for this person. And it can be very depleting because the person that is sick or the person that's struggling doesn't often give back what you're pouring in. It also may be physically demanding because you're working all the time. Plus, you're doing this at night. And so you are tired. It's a fact. So how in those situations do you create this exchange of energy? The secret is values. Tap into your values in order to create positive energy back and to help you rise above the day-to-day stresses that are temporary. Because the truth is, if you tap into your values, it makes you feel like an amazing human being, knowing that you are there for your mom. It makes you feel like a good person, knowing that you are a compassionate caregiver that is helping your child or your partner through a really difficult chapter. When you start to feel depleted, remind yourself, lift your gaze, raise your gaze, and look out to the future and feel proud of yourself for acting in alignment with the kind of person you know yourself to be, even though it's hard. That's how you create a positive energy return for yourself in those situations where somebody either doesn't have it to give back or the situation itself is really physically demanding. I'll give you another example. I have a friend that is going through a hard time and has been for a long time. And I continue to pour into this friendship, even though I don't get a lot back. Why? The reason why is I get a lot back knowing that if I were in this situation, I would want a friend of mine to stay around and pour into me. And that is what drives me. That creates that energy exchange. And so you have within you the ability to do things that feel hard, like exercising or stopping drinking or staying sober or changing your habits or making cold calls. You can do those things that feel difficult. And trust me, you're going to feel proud of yourself, which is why they return on the investment of effort. And you can do things that are draining. And I promise you, they will come back to you with energy because it makes you feel good about yourself. And I bet you can think of 4 or 5 things that you're doing right now that are hard that you're not even giving yourself credit for. You should be proud of yourself because you're a good person. You keep showing up. And that is something you need to celebrate. That's something that you need to feel energized about. And in those times when it gets really hard, remind yourself, this too shall pass. That what goes up also comes down. Just like when you're hiking a trail on a mountain. That this is a season of your life. And holding on to what doesn't serve you is going to drain you. It's going to kill off your happiness. But finding ways to bring energy back in those situations that are aligned with your values and what you want, that's a power move. Today's topic is the 3 lessons that I have learned from one of the hardest years of my life. And I wanted to do a episode about the lessons that I've learned recently because this has been a really freaking hard year for me. And there are so many of you that listen to this podcast that are new friends of mine that have met me after the podcast is launched. And you may find it surprising to hear that this has been a really, I'm talking, if I had to rate 0 to 10, how hard it was, 0 being this was a cakewalk, 10 being this sucked sour eggs. This year would be about a 97 on a scale from 0 to 10. And if you listen to me today, you think, well, how could that possibly be? You've got one of the top ranking podcasts in the world. You've come out of nowhere and are just crushing it, Mel. You seem to have it all going on. You're clearly a very positive person. How could this possibly have been the hardest year of your life? Well, you're seeing me after the hardest year. And, when you think about a lot of the kind of cheesy metaphors in life, it's always the darkest right before dawn. It's always hard right before it gets easy. And I think one of the things that's true about life is that life requires you to get lost right before you find yourself again. And I'm not going to lie to you. It sucks when you feel lost. It sucks when life is hard. There is nothing fun about it. I do not wish it on anybody. And I also know that it is unavoidable. That there are going to be years of your life that are absolutely amazing and delicious and easy. And they're going to just flow like water flows out of a faucet. And then there are going to be years like the year I just had that nearly suck you dry. It's like the hits just keep coming. And so I'm going to just at a top level tell you some of the reasons why this year was super hard for me. And even preparing to talk to you about this, thinking about what life looked like just over a year ago, I started to get emotionally triggered. Just talking about how hard it's been makes me feel stressed out again. So, let me just kind of go back, about a year. So a year from now, I was so burnt out. I had been running on adrenaline for years. The more successful I became, the more unhappy I was. For 2 years, I had been living separately from my husband and our son because we had raised our kids in Boston, and that's where my business was. And during the pandemic, remember that? During the pandemic, our son made this decision that he wanted to go to school in southern Vermont. And so my husband and our son were living with my mother-in-law, and he was going to the public school 3 hours away from me in southern Vermont. And I was down in Boston working. And so I was living alone. I was not near my husband and son. I would see them on the weekends. I was driving back and forth, and it was just beating me up. On top of that, there was some stuff going down at work that was super painful. I had somebody very close to me that betrayed me. I mean, they stole from me, they lied to me, and it had been going on for a while, and it all kind of blew up a year ago. And so here I am feeling lonely, feeling burnt out. I'm looking at a massive betrayal. And I don't know if any of you have ever had that experience where somebody deeply in your inner circle steals from you, lies to you, does something to you like that. But it just takes you to your knees. And I was super just unhealthy. I had not been exercising consistently. I was grabbing the alcohol to relieve the stress and loneliness. And in preparing to talk to you about this today, I went back through my camera roll and back through my calendar. And, it's a wake-up call because you kind of forget how bad things are once you get through it. I mean, when you're in the soup of it, you feel like you're drowning in sludge. But when you get through it, it's almost like after you have a baby, you forget the pain of labor. Looking back at my photos from last year, seeing me so worn down, I looked so pale. I looked like a dolphin. You know how dolphins have gray skin? I had no brightness to my face. The life force was just drained out of me. And, that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I was in therapy. I was trying to sort stuff out, but I was just miserable. And if I'm being honest, I had been miserable for a while. I had just been pushing through. Life felt very hard. And I knew deep down that something had to give. I knew that I could not continue to go on living separate from Chris and Oak, going back and forth, feeling so burnt out, surrounding myself with friendships or relationships where I wasn't feeling supported. I was actually getting betrayed. And I knew I had to do something. And it may surprise you to hear me say, I just felt stuck. And I had all these excuses for why I had to keep going and all these excuses for why I, couldn't change things. And I also felt like this was getting done to me. I don't know if you've ever heard that quote that, oh, life is happening for you. I hate that quote because I'm like, no, it's not. Life is happening to me. Don't tell me when my life isn't working that this is happening for me. Screw you. Well, then something happened. What happened is in December, I had a conversation with a really good friend of mine. And my friend's name is Pete Sheehan, and he's known me for a long time. And he said, Mel, you are more miserable than I have ever heard you. And I think that it's time that you truly get control of this, that you focus on your happiness, that you make some serious changes. So I'd love to get your advice because we've been talking about the fear of public speaking and how terrified so many people are of public speaking, and not even just getting on a stage, but even just sharing an idea in a meeting at work.
Yeah.
Or starting a hard conversation.
Oh my gosh.
Or that moment where you're at a meeting at school and you want to say something, but your fear holds you back and keeps you silent. What advice do you have to help somebody learn how to conquer their fear of speaking, either on a stage or at work, or being more vocal in life?
For me, what helps me the most is to feel like I own my story, to make it ownable. Even if you have to share the profits of the year or whatever, share your personal story behind that. Like attach some of your journey to whatever you want to share. even if it's a tool. For example, it's so easy to go on Google and research, what am I going to talk about? Let me talk about this topic. And then
Right.
Google will tell you the answer. And then anybody can Google that same answer.
Yes.
But only you can share a very personal story about that. For example, when they invited me to speak at Facebook, they asked me specifically to talk about the imposter syndrome. They're
Okay.
like, everybody here experiences that. Please talk about it.
Yep.
And I started researching what's the imposter syndrome, how to get over the imposter syndrome. And I started adding that to my presentation. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just repeating what Google is telling me. Is that like even legal? No, like I should be talking from my own experience. So I thought, when was a time where I experienced the imposter syndrome and what helped me in that moment? I added that story to my presentation, and even today I share it. Like I've been sharing that story for 7 years.
What is the story?
Oh my God. So it was a time where I was just starting as a speaker.
How old were you?
And not that long ago, it was after the 100-day project. So I faced 100 fears. The last one was to speak on TEDx. And that's what launched my career as a speaker. And that was in 2015. So I started
Gotcha.
speaking in 2016, let's say.
Okay.
And so they hired me to speak at ESPN. And I was very nervous, but very excited. And then the speaker that went right before me was the most exceptional speaker you can think of. And guess what? She was also the first speaker today at the event. So full circle. Yes. Hi, Carla. Yeah. So she was amazing. She was exceptional. And then I had to follow that act. And I was so nervous because I experienced the imposter syndrome. I'm like, if that's a speaker, I'm not a speaker. Like, I'm not that. And I was just starting. So I felt very intimidated by her. And I thought, I have to be more like her. I have to be more polished. I have to speak perfect English. I have to answer better. Like, she's answering all these awesome questions. Like, it was horrible, that feeling of comparison, right?
Yeah.
And then after the event, I went to the happy hour, and I was hesitant to go, but I'm so glad that I went, because that night so many people approached me to tell me that I was also one of the highlights of the day for them, and that they appreciated how real I was, and what I thought was like my imperfect side of myself was exactly what resonated with them. So the more real you are, the more you can own who, your authentic self, your story. That's what people want to hear more than anything else.
Amazing. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. So another question to ask you is, so you're doing a couple sessions at the event today, and you're nervous.
Yeah.
Other than thinking about what's the best that could happen, are there any other strategies that you use in those moments where the fear starts to rise up and your nervous system goes into a state of being on alert and you start going, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit? Like, what else do you personally do that you can give to somebody listening as a little technique to get your shit together?
Okay, one of the things that helped me is that I realized that I let go and I calm myself down when I dance reggaeton. Yeah, it's crazy. But when I realized that, I was like, I need to include that in my presentation.
I love that. That's how you take the stage, right?
That is, yeah. So whenever they say, welcome, Michelle, I play my song.
Yes.
I go on stage and I start dancing Dura from Daddy Yankee, and I dance all out. And it's really uncomfortable because I'm the only one dancing. I try to make people dance, but they don't. Mostly at very corporate settings. They stay in their seats and they're petrified looking at me. Why is she dancing?
Or if you've got like the 8 a.m. slot in Las Vegas and you're the first session and there's literally like an eighth of the chairs are filled. Nobody's up front and you're dancing like a maniac on the stage alone.
Yes, exactly.
Now, are you still afraid to do that?
I'm not. I remember at the beginning, I would tell my husband, because we travel together, we always speak together, and I was like, I'm not doing it every single time. And he was like, you are doing it, Michelle. So I needed him to convince me, every time. And now I feel like I need to. Like, now I know that every time I dance, I feel so much better afterwards. So that would be one of my advices. Like, try to find what calms you down. See how if you can incorporate that into your speech.
I actually have a different reason why that works. Do you want to know why that works?
Yes.
Because nervousness and excitement is the exact same thing physiologically. And so you are hijacking your state of nerves and aiming it at dancing, which is a state of excitement.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, you take control of your physiological state by dancing. So it's not at all about calming down. It's about you channeling nerves into a really exciting thing,
Yeah.
even though it makes you uncomfortable to do it on stage.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
super
yeah,
cool. All right. I know you have a plane to catch.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It is so crazy. Thank you for reaching out to me. I am thrilled that you did. I am super excited to share your work with our listeners. I love supporting other women
I can
on the
tell.
corporate stage. And I also applaud the fact that A, you reached out, and B, when I said, yeah, come on by, you said, I got 20 minutes, but I got to catch a flight, but I'm going. And then when you walked in here, what did you say?
I said that I forgot my laptop at the convention.
So you sent your husband back. You came in
Yeah.
here. We are getting it done. You're going to get it done tomorrow.
Yay!
One final thing that I'm sure everybody asks you. What is the next fear you're going to conquer?
A second baby. That would be my next fear.
Why are you afraid of that?
Because I just had one and I know exactly what it means, but at the same time,
actually, no, you don't.
no. But I
No, you don't. Right? You don't know.
Maybe I don't.
No,
Maybe
you
I don't.
don't, because two is very different than one, and it's a totally different
gosh.
human being, and the labor will be totally different, and the pregnancy will be totally different.
Yeah. I hope. No. Yeah. So just having one and going through all the entire experience was amazing. But at the same time, it was 2 years of being away from what I love as my job and all of that, because I chose to be very present at home. So just right now, I feel like, I'm finally back. Michelle is back. That's how I feel. And now we're like, okay, let's try for a second one. And we're like,
I
But that
can
would be
see
a
why
fear.
that's nerve-wracking. And that's why you got to face it, right?
Exactly. Yes. We have to. Like, and if it's something that you really want, doesn't matter the fear. You have to go for it. And yeah.
Amazing. Any final words?
Any final words? What's the best that can happen?
What's the best that can happen? Hello,
Yeah.
fears.
Yeah. Hello, fears.
Oakley, I have to stop you because I want to point out two really critical things. Number one, you stopped caring about what other people thought. Now, look, you had it easy because you were locked in your house, so you didn't have to see people. But when you can figure out how to care more about how you feel today about yourself, rather than focusing on caring whether or not people are going to pick on you for the skinny jeans or your poodle perm, in my case, when you can actually stop caring and you can care more about your own happiness, that right there changes everything. And so what you're describing is you had this epiphany that we all need to have, which is the only thing that matters is whether or not you're waking up today and you are going to do things that make you happy. That's the only thing that you should care about. And there's a second thing that I want to point out. Instead of being surrounded by people who are critical of you, which is what was happening in school, you were now stuck at home with 4 people who love you.
Exactly. I knew they loved me and I knew that they respected me. And I'd wake up every day and I wouldn't like look in the mirror and be like, well, there are my man boobs. There's like my ugly ass double chin. I wouldn't see that. I'd look in the mirror and be like, today's a day. Time to go fucking play Xbox for 30 hours. Like, like it was awesome because we were all together and it was awesome. But it was just like, I was walking every day and I was enjoying my time and I wasn't ever like getting down on myself. And what I came to realize is that when I worry about what other people think of me, it like drags me the hell down. And when I didn't think about other people or I didn't think about what they were thinking about me, I wasn't like, yeah, like I bet they look so stupid right now, or I bet their hair looks ugly. Because like I didn't know, nor did I give a shit. So I wasn't trying to impress anybody and no one was trying to impress me. So what I really realized was that when social scenarios get in the way and you are worried about what other people think of you, that's when you get down on yourself.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed about you, Oakley, is that you're not on social media a lot. And based on the research, there's a lot of kids that came out of that 2-year weird period in our lives way worse in terms of mental health because they spent that time at home mainlining social media. So even though they weren't in school, They were online doing that same comparison thing in isolation on their own. It is so freaking damaging when you mainline social media and you use it as a battering ram. And then you say to yourself, well, I hate myself. I hate the way I look. I wish I looked like that. And so I think that's an important thing to point out, Oak, that you weren't sitting there doing that probably because you were on Xbox playing video games for 30 hours a day. But that's a big deal. And so there was a very poignant moment that you described to me that I keep thinking about. And I would love for you to share this moment with everybody because you're so lucky that this happened when you were 17. It's poignant that self-hatred ends when you stop criticizing yourself. Like the comparison is something that we can all work on. But the self-criticism that we engage in relentlessly, every single one of us, that's the source of self-hatred. So describe this moment where you had this amazing breakthrough.
You only go through life with yourself. You are the only person that you wake up with and you go to sleep with every single night and every single day. And you are the only person that you need to please. You are not going to live your whole life with the ability to please everyone else because that's not going to make you happy. Because at the end of the day, if you're not happy, other people's happiness won't boost you. It won't make you feel better.
That's a crazy simple way to explain how profound it is when you learn how to accept, be kind to, and eventually love yourself. And you said something to me when we were talking about this that I thought was really like so simple, but also gut-wrenching in its truth, which is when you were removed from the situation of walking into school, where you were worried people are going to pick on you, worried about whether you fit in, trying to get the attention off you, all of this energy pointed at managing this. And it's all energy that is based on the belief that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
That when that got removed and you were just quarantining with me and Dad and your two older sisters, you had this epiphany where you're like, well,
there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.